Assalamu alaikum. Greetings from Abu Dhabi. It's day 2 of Ramadan here, and I thought, yes, I will. I'll commit. I'll commit to doing a regular update of my experience of Ramadan. So this is my 22nd year fasting for the holy month, and I had originally thought, I think I want to do a podcast. And I had it all geared up and I had a name for it and all that kind of stuff. And I've been watching some of the just unbelievably negative, just not nice stuff that's coming out. And so, just polarizing views, it's like the world's gone bonkers. It's like upside down and inside out and, So I did kind of think twice about whether I really wanted to put myself out there at a time where there's just so much hate. But while there's so much hate, there's so much more love and so much more decency and goodness among all people from all different backgrounds. So I rethought it, but rather than doing a fully-fledged podcast and all that kind of jazz, I'm just going to do it straight from the heart, and I'm going to speak to you. Hello, Assalamu alaikum, from me here in Abu Dhabi, Jessica Swann-Jadwat, and invite you to journey with me. Now, this might be something you may be very interested in, alhamdulillah for that, or you might not be, and that's totally fine too. We're all at different, headspaces. Anyway, so perhaps the question of why, because I think as we go through this holy month, I know if you are going to follow my journey with me, there's going to be moments where you think, wow, hang on, she wasn't born Muslim. What's her story? How did that all happen? How did she get to where she is now? So perhaps, given this is the first time we're meeting in this context, in this way, maybe that's where I start. So who am I? Who are you? You're very welcome to put your comments in, say who you are. I'd be very interested. So 1974, that's the year I was born, in an outer eastern suburb of Melbourne. And I had a very normal childhood. I had three older brothers. I had ballet lessons, when I was a little girl, snail races, building forts in the backyard with my brothers, climbing trees. There were Easter egg hunts, Christmas trees, all that kind of stuff. Very normal, right? But I think there's one prevailing thing, and I can't tell you why I am this way. I've always had big questions, always. Even during my partying years and all this kind of stuff, there was still niggling questions in the back of my mind as to God, If God is in all things, then how is God in you? How is God in me? How is God in the water? How is God in the cosmos? So, big questions. Don't ask me why. It's just the way I am. In Islam, we would say, Allahu Alam, only God knows. So, look, that's a really important starter for the story, for the decisions that I've made in my life. And so I was christened Anglican in the Church of England in the beautiful St. Paul's Cathedral, which is opposite the Flinders Street station in the Melbourne's CBD. And when I got to the age of 17, I was asking some big questions, deep, big questions about all of this. And I thought converting to Catholicism may satiate that quest or that hunger, that yearning. And so I went ahead and did my catechumen. I did my 12 months worth of classes. I went through the 3 rites of initiation that you go through when you do it. And I loved it. I really enjoyed myself. And I learned a lot. I appreciated it. It would be a Thursday night and I'd go to these beautiful classes and we'd light a candle and, you do all that stuff and learn all about God, basically, and faith from the Catholic perspective. And then I'd go out partying that night with my girlfriends and and it was all good. I really enjoyed myself. And then I got to about the age of 21 and I had moved up to Sydney and those questions were still there. They were like really big, niggling questions for me. And so this particular day, I picked up the phone and I called the Catholic Archdiocese in Sydney with the question, how do I become a nun? And I'm with you here. I mean, cannot be more unorthodox, but, you know, I've always been a bit of a Shirley MacLaine road less travelled. So I guess I wanted to know, but honestly, the feeling was palpable. The phone was ringing, my hands were sweating, and I'm thinking, what am I doing? And what am I even going to say if they answer the phone and I say, oh, hi, I'd like to become a nun. What do I do? Is that even a thing these days, becoming a nun? Anyway, as the phone was ringing and I'm stressing and I'm crying a bit as well, because I'm like, what am I doing? This is such a weird thing to do. I figured, look, if the phone doesn't answer, that means I'm not cut for the cloth. That's God's message to me. Nah, this is not for you. Go and do something else. Never answered. So I hung up and I became a flight attendant instead, as you do. Became an Ansett flight attendant, first domestic and then international. And I absolutely loved it. It was super fun. And I had a ball. In many ways, being an international flight attendant especially spoke to something that really developed at a very, very young age for me. My father was a jazz musician by night and an airline executive by day. So what does that mean? That meant that we were traveling a lot overseas. So a lot of trips to Asia, a lot of trips to the United States where my dad loved to go. And there was this fantastic jazz festival called the Sacramento Jazz Festival. And it was all really fun and what have you. And I think the most important part of my early childhood and traveling the world was the differences. And I was fascinated with different cultures and different ideas and different ways of worship and different spiritualities and religions and blah, blah, blah. If it was different, I was into it. And my favorite question was why? And I was never far away from that thought. So, that's also part of my origin story. So, you know, flying for Ansett, and it was amazing. And you're in, you know, Singapore and you're in Hong Kong and you're in Shanghai and, you know, South Korea, and just amazing, and meeting so many different people. Anyway, 9/11 happened. I was finishing my undergrad at the time. That was in media and communications in Melbourne. And 2 days after that, Ansett collapsed. So I, along with 16,000 of my colleagues, were out of a job. And so fortunately for me, I was young. You know, I wasn't older with a mortgage and kids going to private schools and, you know, which was the case for so many people. For me, I was footloose and fancy free. And in fact, I was already starting to get itchy feet thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so done with tea, coffee, me. I'm so done. What's next for me? So, cut a long story short, this is where we go back to the God thing. Islam and Muslims were being represented in the media in a very, very bad way at that point. And I was confused and I wanted to know, why? Is this true, what they're saying about Islam and Muslims? And I had some very basic questions. How many Muslims are we talking about? I mean, if we're all really going to hell in a handbasket, why hasn't this happened sooner? What kind of a God do Muslims believe in? So very basic questions. And the truth of the matter is, what kind of God do they believe in? The same God as Jews and Christians. It's an Abrahamic tradition. It's the third, it's basically a trilogy. So you've got the Torah, the Bible, and then the Quran. And that's like, that blew my mind. It's like, wow, okay, so Moses or Musa in the Quran, and Isa or Jesus, they're all there and all the stories are there. It's just an extension of all of that. I suppose one way that I would describe the Quran and the teachings of Islam to many people, it's really no different. So the teachings of monotheism, the pure teachings of Judaism and Christianity are all there. It's a little bit like going from dial-up internet to like broadband Wi-Fi or something, the connection just becomes stronger. So you get for me, I can only speak for me. I can't speak for anybody else. You get all those teachings, but it's really like on high octane, and it's really clear. Like the messages are really clear. If you've got questions, well, hang on, what was Jesus doing between, the age of, the time where he was, supposedly, crucified, or, and before that, and before that, when he started, developing his profile effectively, what was he doing from the time that he was born to then? And how did it all work? Islam filled in the gaps. There's many different things that it speaks about. Anyway, so that's all that. Anyway, I ended up jumping on a plane and moving across to the Middle East. I moved to Bahrain. Why did I choose Bahrain? Because it was really the only Muslim country that felt somewhat familiar. My dad had travelled to Bahrain on a number of occasions when I was a little girl, and while I hadn't been there with him, I travelled with him. So while I hadn't been there with him, I knew that he went there, and I found it quite fascinating. And so I jumped on a plane and I moved. So when Ansett collapsed, a lot of people went across to Emirates in Dubai and also Gulf Air. And so I took a job with Gulf Air at the time because it was going to give me an income and it was going to give me a place to live. But I can tell you with every fibre of my being, if I never had to serve fish or beef ever again, I would have been fine. I would have been absolutely fine. And I was so done with tea, coffee, me. Done, and more done. But look, this was my means to an end. And my end was to learn about Islam. And so off I went. I packed my bags and I moved to Bahrain, and I started learning. And it was incredibly compelling what I was learning, and it was completely different to what the mainstream media were talking about. And I found that, just when you're trying to do a message like this, the blower guy turns up outside and starts blowing. Seriously. Do I stop this or do I keep going? I wish I could do a live poll. And look, I got to show you this. Look, the cat. Yeah, I've got the cat as company. Cat's name's Cookie. Maybe I just keep going. Anyway, jump on a plane, move over there, and obviously my quest to understand Islam, 3 days in, I went into a mosque for the very first time.